What is up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, however you are consuming this podcast. The last 2 weeks of this show have been the best 2 weeks ever. This podcast going almost 8 years deep now. So thank you so much for that. Thank you to today's sponsor, the law office of William Mattar. Heard in a car, call William Mattar, 444-4444. Call William Mattar today to get the compensation that you deserve. This is the Monday audio podcast. On the video side, as usual, I'm live Sunday night, 9 p.m., joined this week by a special guest, and I'm not just saying this, I truly mean this, really do, one of my favorite football minds of literally anybody that covers the Buffalo Bills. He's been coming on this show periodically, almost from the get-go. Excited to have him on with me tonight from Cover One, my boy, Anthony Prohaska. Man, what's going on, dude? What's up, Anth? How you doing?
I'm all right. Busy weekend. I had some family in town. The Jim Leonhard news dropped. I had to ditch the family to do some Jim Leonhard stuff. And then I kind of got sick at the back half of the weekend, which I feel like was karma for having to do the Jim Leonhard stuff. But I'm pumped. I'm excited. I appreciate you having me back. This has become, I know our mock draft stuff is a nice little off-season tradition, but it's cool to kind of get off that regular routine there and talk some, honestly, what's been a very eventful start to the off-season, which I don't think a lot of us were kind of anticipating or expecting.
That is an understatement to your point. So for people, again, if you've been riding with this show for a while, one of my favorite traditions during mock draft season is Anthony always does a show with us, and Bruce Nolan from the Bruce Exclusive. Those are my two guys, man. I always make sure I get them on every mock draft season. They're fun to do. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I love doing mock drafts. It's not necessarily about predicting them accurately that makes them worth it. It's just learning scenarios. It's learning a lot about players and things of that nature. There's so much more to get out of a mock draft than who did you draft where and how accurate was it a year or two down the line.
Yes, it's the conversation. It's the exercise. It's the fun. Yes.
I learned so much by listening to, again, people like you, like Bruce, like Greg, some others with these mock drafts. I just love them. And I said, it's not about accuracy, but I will say this. I was looking this up earlier, little bored, had some time to kill here on a relaxing Sunday afternoon. I did go back to last year's. I should have went back deeper, but I just settled for doing this one a year ago. We're not going to fly through the entire mock draft, but we're here about, 9-10 months later.
Yeah.
Your first round pick and your day two picks. I wanted to, we talked for a few minutes on air. The first one you knew, second one you couldn't remember, the third one I didn't tell you. Let's have a little bit of a game here and see if 10 months later, if you had your choice between the Pro Ant mock draft or the real Buffalo Bills draft, which one would you be taking right now? Last year, Anth, first pick, you took Trey Amos, the corner. He went to Washington. He went to 61st overall.
He ended up having, so he was a name I was waiting for his name to go. And apparently, in the draft process, he had, I think it was a medical, it was definitely medical. I think it was a knee issue that kind of scared some teams off. And it was why he had that precipitous fall. There's no way he should have gone that late. And I was like, oh man, that really sucks for him. But then he came out and played well until he got hurt towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. He was a good pick. And you know what? Going back to last year's mock draft season, I kind of feel like he was the most frequently guy mocked to the Bills. If you took all the mocks and added them all up, I feel like Trey was probably that top pick.
Ironically, if I remember correctly, we talked about Max Hairston.
Oh yeah, we did.
But we talked well, the off the field stuff probably scares the team away. We don't know, yada yada. I think what's annoying with that result too is Max did look good in the limited time. So I'm fine with the Max pick, but we don't really know because he got hurt. I wish he got more time on task. Which is annoying. I mean, you could even make the same case for Amos because he got hurt early on, but then played through and then went down on IR, I think week 12, 13, something like that.
Now, in your mock draft, which is funny because both these second round pick guys, the real one and the one you mocked, weren't healthy all season long. So they're off to slow starts, but you cannot judge a draft pick after 1 year. In our mock draft, you took, I can't pronounce his last name right. Couldn't, still can't, you can. JTT, I'm calling him.
Yeah, Tui Moluau.
Yeah, that dude, man. He went to Indy, 45th overall in real life. You took him in our mock. I pick 56. Again, slow rookie year, 6 tackles, no sacks, no big role right now. But conversely, the Bills moved up to get TJ Sanders in round 2 with the real thing. And again, I'm far from writing him off, but it was not the kind of rookie season we were hoping for, especially considering Ed Oliver missed so much time. And this guy was being drafted primarily to be, that spell that Ed Oliver. So it didn't work out too well for the Bills. But JTT still would be a prospect I'd be interested in seeing in Buffalo.
Yeah, and especially with, what's ironic about that is, Sanders got hurt too, but the injuries at edge, Sanders had to play edge a bunch for the Bills. So it would have been cool, if they had taken an edge at that spot, maybe it's more of a natural fit. What do you kind of get from there? Mm-hmm. That's kind of, funny how that worked out. Yeah, and Sanders, we all know what kind of Sanders this season. And then, JTT a little bit banged up throughout the year. I'm interested to kind of see just that whole defense in general, coming back, and they were banged up, and we'll see what Sauce becomes next year. The Colts went from the 1 seed and looking in prime position to just Daniel Jones goes down, a bunch of dudes on the defense get hurt, and then Jonathan Taylor is like an MVP candidate at one point, good chunk of the year, double-digit weeks into the season, 10, 11, and they just fell off a cliff.
Yeah. All right, last one. Then we'll get into some current stuff, which, by the way, we're going to spend a lot of time today. I'm going to get Anthony's kind of thoughts on the state of the team as the season ended, his thoughts on the whole McDermott firing, the hiring of Joe Brady, and then we're going to really dive into Jim Leonhard, what he's going to bring to this team. We'll learn some about him, so some of the style that he likes to play, maybe a couple fits for a Jim Leonhard Buffalo Bills defense, what that may look like. That's going to be the primary premise of today's show. Before that, though, like I said, the real last day 2 pick for the Bills was in round 3, and it was Landon Jackson. And again, going to be careful. I'm not going to write a guy off after 1 year. Injured. Who knows? Maybe he learns and he gets better and he comes on late. It was not a good rookie season. He didn't really look the part at any point of his rookie year. Who you took? Now, we did move up. So we moved back, I believe, with Trey with that first pick.
I remember this one and the one that we did the year before. I remember us going so hard with trades and requests and making moves and doing a bunch of things. And I think I know who we took with this pick in last year's.
I remember
who we wanted. Is it somebody who you really like?
It's somebody who, if I had my choice, I wish he was on the Bills right now.
I remember we were trying to get Xavier Watts, and we didn't. And for some reason, I was like, is that who we ended up with? So then I'm wrong.
It's not Xavier. I'd be doing cartwheels if the Bills had Xavier Watts right now. I'll give you a hint, though.
Okay.
You're at the same position. We took a safety at the end of round 2.
Oh, man.
And he had a really good season, a very promising season, but then he got hurt. He got hurt.
Who do we take?
We took Andrew McCullough.
Oh, yes, we did. We took Makuba. Yeah, son of a biscuit. We did. You're right.
And he went, by the way, we took him 64 in our mock draft. In real life, he went 62 to the Eagles. So we were literally right there. 27 tackles, 2 interceptions. He had a very promising rookie season, but then he hurt his ankle, had to have surgery week 12, and he got put on IR right now.
Yeah, I forgot about that because he got hurt, and I just put him into the attic of my brain. Oh, man, yeah, we did take him. Man, that would have been, Makuba and Bishop would have been so cool, man.
Yeah, that would have been a nice tandem. Man. Plus, like I said, in our mock, Amos instead of Max Harrison, and there's nothing against Max. I like Max, too. Yeah. They showed a lot of promise to rookie year. But anyway, that was Anthony's mock draft with us last year. If you want to go find it on YouTube, you can go through the whole thing. It was an hour and 40-minute show, by the way, which never got boring. I listened back to a lot of it. It was really cool because, like you said, we were talking it out. We were making trades up and down the board. It was just it was a lot of fun.
The exercise is what makes it fun, the deliberation of being what position? Okay, no, this position versus that position. Okay, we're agreed on the position, but what about this player versus that player? Yeah, it makes it so fun. And it's a really refreshing exercise too. Instead of, I love mock drafts, and I'll be like in line at Tops or Wegmans, and I'll do one really fast and post it, and then I got like everybody and their mother yelling at me, "I can't believe you took this guy!" And I'm like, "Yo, my man, I did this while I was waiting in line at Tops. Like, are you kidding me? Right now, I'm just having fun."
By the way, the live chat, Diamond Pickle said McDermott would never play a rookie safety. Yes,
that's not true. I disagree.
Yeah. Real quick though, too, before we get going, I had talked to you earlier. Yesterday, I think it was, when we set this up. And I said, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about that. And I said, we're going to head on the Royal Rumble. And you kind of put me in my tracks a little bit. You're like, you're not really down with the WWE anymore, man. When did that happen?
Oh, well, I mean, if we're tracing it back, I stopped watching WWE, oh, man, like 2000, oh, man, like 6-ish, 5-ish,
been that long?
7, 8, something around there. Like, I found TNA and Ring of Honor and that style of wrestling, and I was like, John Cena's the worst, and I'm off of WWE. And then I came back around a little bit with the Shield, right around when the Shield turned face with Corporate Kane, trying to push them to attack Lawler. They turn back around, and then they have the feud with Evolution. That kind of brought me back a little bit because I knew Rollins as Tyler Black in Ring of Honor, but I didn't follow him to NXT. Wasn't like a huge thing at that time. So I started to come around a little bit, and then they started bringing in all those indie guys and the Ring of Honor guys I knew, and Kevin Owens and Ciampa, and NXT was a thing. And so I started watching it a little bit, but they were still much of a backseat to New Japan. New Japan was my tried and true, and I think that period of New Japan from AJ Styles being in Bullet Club all the way through, honestly, until like 2021, 2022, when all their dudes started going to AEW. Like, there was such a golden run there. And then when AEW started, I fully kind of put WWE in the back burner. I just, that style of wrestling from AEW standpoint, New Japan standpoint, the kind of the sport of professional wrestling is really, really what attracts me to it. And I would keep tabs on WWE every once in a while. But then, not to make it too much of a thing, but a lot of the personalities and the people who run the company and the kind of people they are, not to get into too much of this, I just want kind of no parts of it. So the on-screen product doesn't intrigue me too much, and then who the people are behind the scenes just kind of makes me not want any parts of it.
That's fair. I still keep up primarily like through the websites. Like, I'll read recaps and stuff just to keep. I rarely watch, but I bring this all up because Saturday was the Royal Rumble, and that is the one pay-per-view per year that like is must watch. I just have so much fun with it. Not just for so much the wrestling, although there's usually a couple surprises and cool things every year at the Royal Rumble. But what we did, like we did at my house Saturday, we had a party. And people come over and we're drinking, and we had pools. Everybody, it's like, it's 30 numbers. So everyone put in $5 for the men, $5 for the women.
Like doing a football square type of deal.
It is, exactly. Right. You draw number 12. So you anticipate who's coming out. It's number 2. Who's number 12? Who's number 12? Oh, shit. It's like Xavier Woods or something like that. Like, you're not winning. I actually won the men. By the way, shout out to me. I did win. I had number 26 in the men, which was Roman Reigns. So I did win $150 while drinking and getting hammered with my buddies on Saturday, and watching Roman Reigns win the Royal Rumble. So
who did he eliminate as the final person to win?
Gunther.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he came in at number 30 after he beat AJ Styles, and I guess AJ Styles is retiring now. That was.
I watched that him going to leave the gloves, but
but then he didn't do it. Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird, man.
I know it's not going to happen, but like I want him. I just wanted an AEW run from him so bad. I just need to see him and Will Ospreay like one time, but I don't think that's going to happen at all. And I also don't think now. Yeah, I saw that clip. I don't think is he gonna that's a weird way to retire? That's a super muddy thing. Like, I kind of expect him to be back now.
It's very open ended. It's like a TV series where they leave the door open for somebody to come back. Like, it's not completely running off. Like, John Cena's done. You know what I mean? Yes. I don't know that AJ Styles is. The show wasn't that good, by the way. And the biggest complaint was there were no real surprises. And then that's because they were in Arabia, man. It's one thing to get on a flight from Chicago to LA for one day to make an appearance and come out, but to fly halfway around the world and then probably have to lay low for a couple of days so that nobody knows you're there. That's just a lot to ask. So
who won the women's rumble?
Liv Morgan.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah. Really that was actually cool. Straight up, the women's match was better than the men's. It was just. Yeah, it was very uneventful. Anyway, I won $150 and I got
That's
drunk.
a win, man.
And Gunther was my son's pick, so it came down to me and my son Shane at the end. So that was pretty cool to get to beat him out of $150. Love to see that.
And that's they're the last two, and you're both sitting there like if I am for it. That's a cool experience. Yeah, that's a good way to go.
All right, let me start here. Let me ask you this. I want to know what your feelings are, or at least were, with the overall state of this team at the end of the season. Before we factor in the coaches, just when you look at this roster, the good, the bad, the ugly of it all, like when you look at it right now, like where does that stand with you? Obviously, we'll get to the coaching stuff here in just a moment, but we're talking about the Johnnies and the Joes right now, not the X's and O's. What's your quick thoughts like on the state of this roster right now, where it stands going into this offseason?
Man, it's super frustrating for me, because I'm going to talk about both sides of my mouth here, and then I hope you will understand my frustration then. Mm-hmm. Because I don't feel like the roster is good enough to be where like this team wants to be, like in championship contention, AFC representative, Super Bowl odds, like second, third, whatever, like potential, like a realistic Super Bowl favorite in some aspects, or in however kind of you're looking at it. Like, I don't feel like the roster is there. But then they just play the good teams really well. And like even this Denver game, like the way the season ended, Denver's roster I thought was much better than the Bills. Like they've got studs, they've got dudes. The Bills turned the ball over a whole bunch, made a whole bunch of stupid decisions. And like they lost by 3 points. And Josh Allen has like a broken foot kind of already. And like all these things that they just year in and year out, I feel this way where they lose in the playoffs. And I'm just like, man, their roster feels so far away. And then like I sit and I look at it and I'm like, but they're not far away. And that's the most frustrating thing about this team, is because like they seem so far away, but they're not. They're like right there, but they're also not right there. It's like simultaneously being at like at the bottom of the mountain, but also right at the tippy top, about to plant your flag. And it's so overwhelmingly frustrating, purely from a roster standpoint. And then when you add in some of the scheme and structure stuff, it gets more frustrating with things defensively, which we'll get into kind of the inverse of it now with Leonhard. And then how they got stuck in the mud and in neutral again this year with Brady, and some of the lack of ideas and passing concepts on that side. But still, all the metrics speak to how good they were, kind of like how they did with Ken Dorsey, and they still put up 27 points on a really good Jags defense, and then 30 points with 5 turnovers against a really good Broncos defense. It's just like, I feel like it's one giant mind FUCK is what I feel like this Bills team is. And that frustrates me more than anything, because it's so muddy, and any little tweak could help them get past or get over or make them better. But also like they've been close without it. This offseason was already before all the firings. I was so frustrated after the Denver game, just because of how they lost, where the roster was, how close they were, the calls from the refs, the way the game, everything. Like I haven't been this frustrated or down. 13 seconds like killed like the last of my heart, and I became just very like, oh, cool, the Bills. This got me frustrated to levels that I haven't been in a long time.
I'm with you there, because I don't think this was one of the best, say, 3 rosters in the AFC.
No,
I really don't. Maybe you can
even when healthy, even if you want to say they were injured. Yeah, even when healthy, no, still.
Yeah, and maybe not even top. Well, probably right around top 5, I would say. Certainly not top 3. So I'm like, there's been like, you could make an argument that this might have been the worst roster that the Bills have had since 2020. I feel like at least you can make that argument. Maybe not, but at least I feel like you can have that conversation. But to your point, man, there's so many other things, and I don't want to make it sound like it's just one thing, but so many things that could have happened. But Brandon Cooks holds on to that football and secures the catch. They're going to Foxborough. I think they're the better team. When I said I don't think the Bills are a top 3 team, I still think they're better than New England, though. Yeah. And I really think, you never know, but the Bills were the better team, and I feel like what we saw from New England in the playoffs, I really think the Bills, if they get past Denver, we're talking about a Super Bowl, literally right here, right now. When you think about it that way, doesn't that just add to the frustration? Because it feels like, the last couple of years, they lost to Kansas City, but Kansas City was really good. The Bills still could have won the game last year. They didn't. Go back 2 years ago, I feel like you could kind of say the same thing as well. But to me, it's just like Denver's the better team, but the Bills should have won the game anyway. And that frustrates me, I think, even more. Because I think the Bills were as good as Kansas City the last couple of years. I really do. Just a couple breaks, but the Bills were an inferior roster that still should be in the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, I think that's a super fair point. And there's that Cooks catch that, maybe if Allen puts it out in front of him a little farther, he doesn't have to jump back into it, but it still probably was a catch anyway. Or even going back to I look at that one, and then I look at the one in overtime where Allen misses McCole Hardman on the corner route, and these ones are all like, those two right there are such a good microcosm of it. Cause like for the Cooks catch, maybe Allen could have put it out a little more in front of him, but Cook still could have made the play. And technically he did make the play, depending on what camera angle you want to use or what still shot. The same thing with McCole Hardman one, like his route, Allen's throw, Hardman still could have caught it, but he didn't, like living on the fence with all these areas. And then the one that I go to, they're up 24-23 and it's third down. They kick the field goal because Allen skips the ball off the dirt to Shakir on the screen that probably gets a first down at least in the low red zone. Maybe it turns into a touchdown, and then maybe it's at worst 30-23, or it's 31-23, or maybe they go for two and it's 32-23 instead of 27-23. The Allen turnover at the end of all these, like if you take any one of those things and flip it in the Bills' favor, the Bills could very easily, realistically, not pie in the sky, be going to the AFC Championship. And then, yeah, you see what happens against like New England from there, who I don't understand how that roster and that team is in the Super Bowl, but conversation for another time, I guess. And yeah, that's just what's so frustrating. Like there's just so many of these little moments, and similar to last year, if Allen recognizes the blitz on the last play, if Kincaid still makes the catch, if that QB sneak gets ruled a first down like it was, it just feels like, I always go this old adage of the one who complains about the way the ball bounces is likely the one who dropped it. And that's fair. But like, I just feel like all these bounces go against the Bills all the time, man. Like, can we just get one time? It just feels like there's 6 or 7 bounces every playoff game, and they all go against the Bills, which is just unreal. And that's what makes it so frustrating, because they are so close, but yet so far, but so close, yet so far.
That is so true. Yeah, it's tough to stomach between 2019 through 2025 here that they've had this many cracks at the piñata and haven't been able to find a way to bust it open somehow, some way. So when Sean McDermott gets fired after the Denver game, what was your initial reaction to McDermott getting fired, and of course Brandon Beane not just being retained but also adding director of football operations to his title as well? What was your initial reaction then, and is it the same reaction that you have now? Because I knee-jerk react like I do everything in my life, and then I kind of let things settle in, and then I arrive at what I feel like is a reasonable opinion most of the time. So mine kind of changed. What were you thinking then, and what do you think now about moving on from McDermott?
I'll kind of go in order of everything. So like McDermott gets fired.
Yeah.
I assumed that meant the axe was going to drop on Beane as well. And my reasoning for that was there's just so much muddiness and messiness in how this team has been unable to get over the hump these years, right? Or the proverbial playoff wall, as Pagula says, whatever it is, right? All the shortcomings, the failures. Sean McDermott is culpable in that 1,000%, right? And I've said this for years, like, if McDermott goes, I'm cool with it. If he stays, I'm cool with it. I think he's a good coach. I think culture is important. And I do think he's better schematically than he gets credit for, but the defenses haven't gotten the job done in the playoffs. I don't like his approach and philosophy and some of the identity things. So I was fine if he stayed, fine if he went. But the shortcomings that this team has had, it's on McDermott and it's on Beane. I feel like even if it's not equal, it's like 55-45. One of them the other way. Like, Sean McDermott's hands are bloody, just like Brandon Beane's hands are bloody. There's so much culpability between the two of them because there's so much interconnectedness with how this team was built. Draft picks that were made, scheme fitting into the players fitting into the scheme, players that were signed, the contracts that they got when they signed, money that was pushed down the road, cap finagling that didn't work out, but sometimes did, but then didn't. It's all like one giant pot. And so when McDermott got clipped, I figured Beane was going to get clipped. Beane, obviously, like you said, didn't get clipped. He gets promotion. I thought that was a little odd. But I was like, okay, I didn't really buy into the power struggle thing, but I was thinking like, okay, keep Beane around, maybe, he's going to move up and someone else will step in as the GM and Bean's not really running the show anymore, but Terry likes Bean. I'd also rather have Bean picking a head coach than I would have Terry picking a GM and a head coach, because we both like the Sabres. I'm not going to speak on them right now because I'm far too superstitious, but it's been hell for the Sabres the past very long time, several years, more than that. So I didn't want Terry running the show for the Bills. And then you get the presser, and things just became more muddy and kind of more frustrating for me. Like, the one that still sticks with me is the question that gets asked of Terry Pegula. Someone asked him, hey, like, how do you kind of, you talk about the shortcomings of the team. How do you parse the shortcomings, being on the coaching staff versus like being on the roster, like something to that tune.
Yeah.
And Pegula is like, oh, wow, that's a hard question to answer. I don't know how to answer that. What do you mean you don't know how to answer that? Because you decided it was the coaching. So you should have an answer. You should know, like, if you decided lemonade is good and apple juice sucks, and someone asks you, how come, how'd you decide apple juice sucks? And you're like, oh, I don't know. That's a good question. No, that you should have an answer because you decided it was the coaching. And that's really kind of what got me for everything. Like, multiple times Pegula throughout the presser essentially just laid all the blame at Sean McDermott's feet.
Yeah.
And rightly or wrongly, towards the end, he kind of cleaned it up a bit for as much as he stumbled in the beginning. But he said it straight in the end, like being in the locker room and the moment after the game. And he says, quote, it's like, how do we overcome this? It's been 1 year after another. It was the sense of how do we overcome this? And I just couldn't see us doing that with Sean. So he felt they could still get it done with Bean. He thought Sean was the problem. My issue with that is I don't know how you get to that conclusion, and then you can't explain how you got to that conclusion. And I also question how you got there, knowing how interconnected and messy and muddy and culpable everything is. And then you blame the coaching staff for the Keon Coleman pick, but I guess Joe Brady was the one who pounded the table for Keon Coleman, so that's okay, but Sean McDermott wasn't. It's very messy and muddy, and I'm still not comfortable with kind of how everything went down. Not necessarily McDermott being gone, but the process of it and how they got there and how we've gotten to this point. The process is muddy for me and messy and ugly, and that doesn't mean it won't get better and this team won't go on and be better. But I just don't like how they've been operating so far, and the process of how they got to these conclusions and not being able to speak to it.
How surprised are you that Brandon Beane has become as vilified, I'll say, over these last, say, 9 months? It feels like it wasn't very long ago where it was big baller Beane, this, big baller Beane, that, the sunglasses meme, like Brandon Beane, let him cook, all these things. And kind of starting, I feel like, with the WGR post-draft radio appearance and kind of the domino effect from that through the season, not making a trade near the deadline, and ultimately Sean McDermott getting fired, him staying. People like Stevie Johnson put up a picture of Brandon Beane's, like a drawing of him, and called him Judas.
I didn't see that. That's crazy.
Oh, it is crazy. It is crazy. I've seen people calling him Littlefinger from Game of Thrones.
That's crazy.
Just the vilification of Brandon Beane just feels wild to me. Are you surprised at what you've seen and heard over the last, say, short period of time when it comes to him?
Not during the season. The recent stuff, yes. I think there's been rumblings for, I really feel like, years, and I'm speaking from myself, my experiences on social or in my episodes where I'm talking about a draft prospect and, I really like this guy. I like this fit, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. And the amount of people, whether it's on like a social post or in an episode, who will come in and be like, oh, well, if this player's good, Beane won't take him because Beane sucks, blah, blah, blah. And I always felt like there was that kind of groundswell around him. And then the wide receivers piece with GR, I think that pushed everything so far to the extreme. And then what's rough with that is that him kind of doing that on GR, you put yourself under such a microscope where your receivers have to hit. And it wouldn't have mattered if the Bills' offense was putting up 50 points a game, but they were doing it all on the ground. People still would have been like, yeah, but your receivers suck, so you were still wrong. Like, he was so front-facing with it and so demonstrative about it that you really back yourself into a corner where there's only a couple of results that are going to make you look favorable. And so I think that pushed it even further. And then the lack of the trades at the deadline, you watch Shaheed get traded for and make an impact for Seattle down the stretch. And then the rumors of Jalen Waddle coming out or he could have had him. And I can't believe you didn't do that. And you just stand pat. And then kind of a joke of like, oh, here comes Brandon Cooks. Like, ha ha. Like, and I feel like it just kept pushing and pushing. And I understood that more. I was really surprised though, because I feel like just as much of a crowd that had existed before of like, oh, Bean sucks. I thought the crowd was larger or more intense about Sean McDermott is terrible and he needs to go. So it was wild for me to see McDermott get fired. And it felt like everyone flipped unanimously and was like, no, this is bad. Bean sucks. He should have gone. That surprised me more than anything. I thought people would have been like, yeah, Sean's gone. Bean should go too. But instead, it was like Sean McDermott's firing galvanized everybody behind McDermott and pushed all the hate chips onto Bean's table. And that to me was surprising. People almost started flipping. The people who wanted McDermott fired were all of a sudden like, this was wrong. He should have stayed. Yeah, it's crazy how these last several weeks have surprised me more than anything.
Let's take a real quick break. On the video side, we'll literally be back in about 3 seconds. And we're going to get into some Bills defense and more specifically the hiring of Jim Leonhard. Let's learn plenty more about him right after this quick break. All right, back here, more Talking Buffalo, presented by William Matar. I'm joined by Anthony Prohaska from Cover One. Get yourself an education. I say it all the time, man, watching that show. The film stuff, chef's kiss, man. It really is. It's awesome. All right, before we get into Jim Leonhard, actually, the coaching search. What were your feelings about the coaching search? Some of the guys they interviewed, and ultimately they landed on Joe Brady. Was that your guy? If it was or if it wasn't, did it start to make more sense for you in the coming days after, or do you kind of still share the same opinion that you initially did, whatever that may have been?
The day McDermott got fired and the day after when I did my show, we did like a reaction show on Cover One, and then I did Disguise Coverage on Tuesday, did the film room on Wednesday. On each of those shows, I said that my gut feeling was Joe Brady was going to be the coach. I was like, I just feel it. Like, I just think it's going to be Joe Brady. And throughout the process, he was not my ideal guy. I think like a lot of people, Clint Kubiak. I wanted Nate Scheelhaus, the passing game coordinator from under McVay with the Rams. I liked him because of what he did as an Iowa State offensive coordinator back in 2023. I didn't want Mike McDaniel as a head coach, but I would have accepted it because of how much I like his offense and his offensive mind. I wanted Jesse Minter. I like the idea of Chris Shula. I know a bunch of people were like, oh, he sucks. They gave up so many points in the NFC Championship, blah, blah, blah. I still thought Chris Shula could have been a good option. I liked Robert Saleh. I think he's a good defensive mind and a good head coach. I think the way the Jets situation ran, I don't really put that on him. So I didn't really want Brady and I didn't really want Dable. Those are my two guys I was kind of like, whatever. And I don't think Brady's bad. I never thought he was, and I've said this so many times now, like, I don't think he was ever as bad as he got made out to be this season. But I also didn't think he was as good as he was made out to be in 2024, where people were crowning him, the prince that was promised. And
right.
Yes, I thought it was too much. I thought it was too reactionary. I also thought Ken Dorsey got too much hate. Like, the pendulum just swings so extreme and so hard because of the emotions attached to this team. But I did have problems with Brady as a designer and a play caller. And a lot of the concepts and kind of like what he went to and when, and the predictability and the lack of vertical aspects and what kind of how things were tying into Allen. And then just from a head coaching standpoint, I didn't know what he would be, but I didn't think he was good enough as an offensive mind to be like, okay, like, you're so good at that, I'm willing to give you a promotion. And also to kind of tie it into the McDermott and Bean thing, he's culpable too in some of the shortcomings here. So just let's clean the wound all at once. Let's get a fresh start. We want to get over this proverbial playoff wall, but we're keeping like over 50% of the stuff that couldn't get over the wall. Like, that doesn't really make sense. So I wanted just some cleanliness and some new stuff, not for the sake of newness, but to get out of that mental state of, thinking that like, oh man, how did this keeps happening to us? What do we do? Let's get fresh blood, fresh vision, fresh mindset, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm still at that. I was underwhelmed when Brady got named head coach. I'm still underwhelmed, and that's where I'm at still.
It's funny because so much turnover now with the staff. Like they're sort of cleaned house in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
eventually, yeah, they did.
But Joe Brady's still here, somebody who, probably drew the ire of fans more than anyone on this team, except for save Sean McDermott, maybe. And then the strength and conditioning is coming back too, which was something that a lot of people have complained about.
Bean made a comment like self-inflicted or something, and I was like, well,
it
then
didn't make sense.
why are you bringing that? And you know what's funny too? Could you imagine if we were sitting here in August and you told everyone, hey, in January, Sean McDermott's going to get fired and Sean McDermott will get fired and Joe Brady will be your head coach. I think people would have been dancing in the street. People would have been so happy. And also to that comment, this Christmas tree stays up all year round, and I change the garland based on whatever holiday it is in that month. This one I was leaving up out of superstition, but I'm going to take it down at the end of January. I wasn't expecting to do a pod tonight until Pat and I got together at the end of the week. So this big one will go down, but this guy stays up all year round. And then come February, it'll be all with red garland and little heart ornaments because it'll be a Valentine's Day tree, and then a St. Patrick's Day tree, and then an Easter tree.
You know what's funny, bro, is when I saw that comment and put it up, and for people who are listening to the show, someone commented in the live chat, when you take it down the tree, I thought, they're talking about you, but I also thought I have Christmas tree cakes.
Oh.
And I have a box, 24 empty boxes here that I ate.
That's intense.
From Thanksgiving to Christmas, so I've left them up too. So I thought he might have been talking about that.
I get it all, or maybe it is. I'm always used to it. That's a funny way too. I can always tell when I get new viewers on YouTube to the show because people will come in and be like, "What's up with the tree?" And then the regular people are like, "Oh, you must be new here." Ha ha ha! Like it's always just a fun little barometer.
No, it's funny. People now they're chiming in. Hey, Anthony,
I know, Roy, but I wasn't. I didn't think I was
doing
a show. We talked at the end of the week. I haven't had time. I had family in. I couldn't move this tree out yet. You know, Roy. You watch my show regularly. Don't do this to me, Roy.
That's funny. That is hilarious. All right, so listen. With Joe Brady, I'm kind of with you. I will say I thought he did a good job in the playoffs. I think both games, there were lots of things schemed open. And again, I thought it was on the players. Don't love it, but what I will say, the one thing, and I'm, my takes are usually sucky more times than not. All right, I admit that. All right, or at least they're heat of the moment. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But I'll tell you, one thing I was consistent about from the very beginning of the coaching searches, and I said this all along. Whoever the head coach is, I'm not saying I don't care. Of course I care. Yeah. But to me, what was even just as important, who's their defensive coordinator going to be? Whatever coach comes in, who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Are they going to bring in something different, or are we going to get more of the same? Yeah. And Jim Leonhard was a guy, one of two or three, that I really wanted from the very get-go. Tell the audience your feelings on Jim Leonhard, the Bills' new defensive coordinator, your opinion on the move, the style of defense that he's going to bring to the table, what you think he brings into to the table, and why Bills fans should just feel excited about this move. Even if you don't love the Joe Brady move, kind of, do you love the Jim Leonhard move? And if you do, kind of elaborate on why.
Yeah, I 1,000% love the Jim Leonhard move. I started tweeting about wanting him as the Bills defensive coordinator back in 2023. I'm a big college football person, just like I am an NFL person. And Leonhard's defense is from when he was the defensive coordinator and DB's coach for Wisconsin from 2017 through 2022. Man, they were just so fun schematically. Simulated pressures, creeper pressures, hybridizing his front and coverage structures, wielding hybridized players, the toe tight front and base, but then, being able to wield nickel and, how he would operate from, two down linemen, the 2-4-5 and what he was doing. And I just thought he was really on the cusp and the cutting edge of what you needed to be for modern football, how to attack opposing offenses, how to put them on the back foot and really dictate to them. A matchup-based guy who was, okay, you're right-handed and you like to throw this type of punch. Cool, we're going to tie your right hand behind your back and we're going to keep an eye out for the left, and we're still going to mitigate your strengths and kind of maximize your weaknesses. I just really liked what he was at Wisconsin. And then he was really kind of like an up-and-coming name to a strong degree, and then kind of almost took a year off-ish type of deal. He was like a consultant for Illinois. Then he goes to the Broncos as their DB's coach there in 2024, and last year, this past season, where he's also the assistant head coach. I just think he's a really smart mind. And in terms of what he does, and you listen to him speak and talk. Even I'll just read this quote, which I think should resonate for all Bills fans, because I saw a couple comments already of like, oh, just where the DBs play, and I want more aggression. Yes, this and that. This is a direct quote from him saying, "quote I never want to be a counterpuncher. I always want us to have things in our game plan that we can dictate the flow to an offense. You need these offenses to have to go over to the sideline and find an answer. And the more flexibility you have within your scheme and the more ways you have to be that, throwing that jab or throwing some of those uppercuts on them, then they have to go make adjustments and not just attack, which is what they all want to do. He builds you a sound scheme. He builds in flexibility for complex problems. Each game plan, they strip everything down essentially to like bare bones and then build the game plan for there based on the opponent they're going to face. I did a full hour on him and why I wanted him this past Tuesday. And then I did a full hour on him and more on Saturday once they hired him and kind of dove into it further. I just think his vision for defense, his philosophy, his identity, and the scheme and structure they play is very built for today's NFL. It's very much a move in the direction that I've wanted this team to make for several years in terms of kind of the shortcomings and the pitfalls I found with the McDermott defense. I think those are strengths within the Leonhard defense and who he wants to be, what he wants to do. And I think it's really encouraging, especially when he talks, you listen to him talk about player development and setting guys up to succeed and allowing them to, to think and grow, have the room to grow, have the room to think. He's just good in terms of development, scheme, structure, all that kind of stuff. I think he's anything and everything you could want in a defensive mind.
Explain to people too the difference. Like say back in the day, if you play a 4-3, you play a 3-4. It was night and day difference. The players were different. We're talking like the 80s and the 90s and things like that. Like defenses were quite literally different. In today's world with football, it's kind of like almost hybrid and matchup based anyway. So some people might say, well, you've been in a 4-3 and now you're going to have a 3-4 and you're going to have an entire complete overhaul on the defense. There will be some additions. We're going to talk about that too, or maybe some subtractions.
Yeah.
But is it like a complete and utter overhaul of philosophy, like where they're lining up? Or is it kind of like a hybrid of a lot of different concepts into one?
It can be, right? Like you can be a true 3-4 and be like, hey, we're going to be a 2-gap and type of team, and that's what we're going to be. But I feel like a lot of people hear 3-4 and think back to like, I don't know, like, oh, that means you need a linebacker like Levon Kirkland, or you need like Gilbert Brown at nose, or like Casey Hampton, or like some like just certain types of pluggers or certain type of body types. I think with Leonhard in particular, one, he is an odd front type of defense, right? His base defense, as he's talked about, like is a tight front, which if you don't know, essentially, got an odd man surface, but the highlight of the tight front is you have a guy on the inside shoulder of a tackle, a guy head up on the center, and then another guy on the inside shoulder of the other tackle. So a 4-eye, a 0, and a 4-eye. And then if you look at what they did at Denver, 5-man surfaces, all that kind of stuff. But there's multiple ways to get to a 5-man surface. There's multiple ways to play these things. So I don't think this team is going to be like a 3-4, 2-gapping, change everything about themselves. I think you'll see a little 2-gapping. I think you'll see some gap and a half. I also think you're going to see some kind of principles that they currently use, or they did under McDermott in their 4-down, 4-3 over front type of deal, to kind of put that in perspective, where you're just one gapping, penetrating, and getting upfield. And even within that, with, Leonhard's world of being an odd front defense type of guy, as a nickel, defense, they are, a 4-down over under front type of defense. So he's got experience in that world, and knowing what they were from a roster coming in, I don't think this is the type of deal or where he's the type of guy. And I know Rex Ryan is fresh in people's minds, right? Where you had that defense and Rex came in and it was like, well, surely he's not going to mess with a good thing because there's all these guys who don't fit his defense. And Rex was like, nope, I'm going to make everybody fit my defense. And I was like, wow, this is a dumpster fire. I don't think Leonhard's that type of guy. He's not going to set up guys for failure. But even if you took everybody as they were built right now and you made a true like 3-4 the way like people think of it, it wouldn't be ideal, but they could still get it done. And I trust Leonhard to do that, but I think it's going to be more hybridized, more with some similar principles to what they've had before. It's not a seamless transition from McDermott to him, but I don't think it's as night and day or as severe as kind of people are making it out to be, like, oh my God, like, what are we doing? I don't think it's that type of deal. And I think he's going to kind of merge and mesh those two things well.
So there's All right. So there's going to be some surgery done to
Yes.
the defense. Not necessarily open heart surgery, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be it's not necessarily like there's going to be 11 or 9 new starters next year on defense than there was. When you look at this roster as is right now, and you think about Leonhard and what he's done and what you think he's going to bring to this team, the style that he's going to bring with them, who are a couple guys currently on this defense that you feel like are going to be good to great fits for a Jim Leonhard defense? And is there maybe one or two that at least right now you're going to at least, I don't want to say terrible fits, but like kind of wait and see. You're not sure that they're going to work in a Jim Leonhard style defense.
Oh, good question. I think the one that I kind of am interested to see the most is Greg Rousseau. I think it starts with Greg Rousseau and kind of TJ Sanders on the opposite end of the spectrum. Like Rousseau, I'm intrigued because, I think it's likely, okay, you stand him up as like in a 2-point stance and he's like your outside linebacker. He is to kind of put it in the easiest perspective for folks. If you're thinking about the Denver Broncos, Greg Rousseau is your Jonathan Cooper or your Nick Bonito, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is one of your guys on the outside there. But then it's also like, oh, okay, do you ever want to flirt with the idea of making him one of those 4 eyes and like kicking him in there? But no, you probably kind of leave him on the edge, right? And I'm kind of interested to see what that could do for him. He's had some coverage like strengths under McDermott, like when they've done some sims and creepers and different fire zone stuff, like he's dropped into coverage and done well. Like him and AJ Epinesa I know they don't do a lot of other things than sexy ways, but when they drop, like it's good. Like they're picking up tight ends and slot guys and they're aware. So I'm like, okay, maybe he unleashes some kind of stuff with Greg Rousseau a little bit to kind of do some more things. TJ Sanders is one I question. I think Ed Oliver can be fine as a 4-eye kind of like you're not going to put him at nose, right? You're not going to have him be that guy head up over the center. That's going to be Deion Walker. Although I would like them to get another guy in rotation with Walker, a true stone type of guy where you just drop him in the center. He doesn't get moved. He's violent and ass kicker plugger type of guy. Like he just eats bodies. Doesn't mean he has to be like Vita Vea size. It's more about the skill set and the play style that you would drop in there. But TJ Sanders, I think, is one like, because you're not putting him at nose. You're not putting him at the edge. You're probably going to put him at a 4-eye. I worry about how he does in that role, especially with how he struggled against some like downhill stuff and some double team action this past year where he was just like the Houston game, he literally just gets chucked like 5 yards across the field. Like it's brutal. He gets blown up. And so I wonder how he fits or where he fits. Those are like the 2 biggest ones, the highlight ones. And then from there, no, I don't think Taron Johnson could play safety. I see that comment that came up there. For me, it's more just, I think the move from corner to safety is much, 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 much harder than it gets credit for. You're changing your vantage point. You're changing the way you see the field. It's not just the responsibility. It's everything. Your angles to the ball coming from depth. Like it's a vastly different way to see the game and play the game. And it takes a lot to kind of make that move. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but I just don't see it as a likely piece. So Rousseau and Sanders are the 2 biggest ones. And then I kind of look at like a lot of other ones that are kind of like muddy. What happens with Dorian Williams? Like I think Dorian Williams could be like an inside linebacker in an odd front defense and let him just play downhill and mash with his length and his strength. And like, he's very much like the odd mirror stuff, right? Where he's the aggressive spy, see ball, get ball, like go kill that guard, go do that. I still worry about him in coverage in certain aspects, but I think he can play downhill and come forward just fine. Good block deconstruction are improving in that area, I should say. And he's got the length and the strength and the size and the physicality to do it. Terrell Bernard is also an interesting one because block deconstruction is a struggle for him, but you anticipate probably seeing more movement in this type of defense, more blitzing, things that he excelled at Baylor and things he's good at when he's healthy, right? Like this past year, no secret, like he had a huge down year.
He had 6.5 sacks though, Anthony, in 2023. I mean, he can get after the quarterback.
He can. And his whole thing, you've got to be able to get him on the move. He's never going to be like, oh, here comes a climbing guard. Let me take him on, shock and shed and make the play. He doesn't have the arm length. He doesn't have the size. So everything for him is beating guys to the spot, processing and beating guys to the spot. Well, when you only have one leg, and to the point, like that comment says, like Bernard equals blocking sled. Yeah, if guys get on him, he's done. He's got to beat them. He's got to win with angles, and he's got to beat them to the spot. You can't beat anybody to a spot when you're playing with one leg, and that killed him. So I think that is still how much of his struggles were an injury piece, how much of the struggles were not, so on and so forth. But he's a guy who, if you're moving your front and you're playing aggressive and letting him shoot, I think that could get real interesting. But if you're going to still kind of play sit and get and let guys get to him, he's going to get thrown out of the club more often than not. So I think those are ones that I wonder kind of like where they go or what they do. Walker, I think, is really interesting. I don't think he had as great of a year as a lot of people do. And I think his body type makes it tough for him to kind of mitigate displacement, not through any fault. I mean, he's huge. He's 6'7", 330 plus pounds. Like, you're not expecting that guy to have some bend and be able to drop and torque and do all these things. But he surpassed my expectations as a rookie. I'm interested to see what he can do. But those are kind of the big ones for me. Rousseau on the positive end, Sanders on the questionable end, Bernard and Williams kind of good, kind of questionable. We'll see where they could fit and how you go from there.
You mentioned Terrell Bernard, too, because I wanted to talk about a couple of potential Bills cut candidates, and there's people have been coming for Terrell Bernard all season long. Listen, I'm not a reporter. I'm not an insider. I don't try to pretend I'm one anymore. I did that 12 years ago. I'll never try to do that shit again. But here's what I will tell you, and I've said this on the podcast, and I've tweeted this. I heard from multiple trustworthy sources in this case. Terrell Bernard got injured on the third day of training camp, and he did not spend one singular day from the third day of training camp through the rest of the regular season completely and fully healthy. Yeah. There was something going on with him literally every day since the beginning of training camp. Some stuff major, some stuff minor, but he was hampered. Lower body stuff too.
Yeah, you could see it. It was like he had a proverbial hitch in his giddy up. You could see that he could not get going. He couldn't plant, and it made it even worse because before, when guys would attach to him, for inside linemen were like get to him and attach, he could kind of dip or bend or turn. And this time they would get their hands on him, and he would just be like, "All right, I'm gone," because he couldn't sit, he couldn't break down.
Yeah.
Man, these comments are rough for Bernard.
Yeah, that's what I did that on purpose because I wanted you to get a little bit of a taste here. This is what I see week after week.
I got people telling me to move him to safety, to cut him, to trade him. He's done. It's just funny though. Like he 1,000% had a very down year and a very bad year. But I thought it was pretty known that he was hurt, and you could tell that he was really hurt. And not that gives him a pass, but I think it's a big variable to kind of analyze his play.
2023. Like I said, it feels so long ago. The dude was a beast in 2023, bro. 6.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions. He was a playmaker. He was not an every down warrior, but what he did was make impactful, splashy type plays. And he's just 2024 was okay, and last year was not good. I bring this up though, regardless, and I wanted you to see those comments, and you get them all the time too, is because it's every team has a punching bag where sometimes it's deserved, sometimes it's not, but you're just going to be the guy who gets punched all the time. And I feel like Terrell Bernard's become that guy, and a lot of people want him gone, even though he just signed a contract. Well, I'm here to tell you that ain't happening, folks. It's not happening. I looked, whether it's post-June 1st, pre-June 1st, it makes zero financial sense, less than zero for the Bills to cut him. They would literally, not only would they eat dead cap money, they would literally lose money against the cap, even if it was post-June 1st. It ain't happening. I'm telling you now, Terrell Bernard will be back for the Bills. Will he be good? Will it work out? I don't know. Then maybe they move on from him, but it ain't happening this year. I will bet anyone anything they want to bet. Terrell Bernard, who, by the way, is one of the 2 captains on this team, is going to be back. So get used to it and get some new, fresh material to diss him, folks, if you're going to.
It's funny how that linebacker spot, that middle linebacker spot, before it was like Edmonds, and now it's him. It's like that position is cursed, and like every fan just hates the guy at that spot. And think about it, too, to like 2023, granted, a couple years ago, like everybody was like, this is what Edmonds should have been. Bernard is so much better. What a savior. And you're sitting here, after like a kind of whatever 2024 and then a hurt and down 2025, and everybody wants his head on a stick or have him jettisoned into the sun.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And then when I try to talk nice about him, I get accused of ball washing him. People say quit ball washing. That's the thing I talk in Buffalo, by the way. If you're nice to someone, Anth, you're going to get accused of being a ball washer. So you just ball wash Jim Leonhard. That's going to happen.
Fair, that's crazy.
A couple other guys, too, I was talking about potential cut candidates. I don't think Bernard is one of them. I do think Taylor Rapp is definitely one of them. They can I'm looking at the numbers now. 666 dead cap space, but they could save $3 million. So they could save $3 million by moving on from Rapp. Not predicting for sure that's going to happen, but it very well could. Dwayne Carter is another one. Minimal, though. 425 dead. They'll save around $1 million. I kind of feel like that'll be a football decision. Like if he has a good camp, he stays. If he doesn't, he's gone. And then the other one, you talked about him. Someone asked you about him potentially moving to safety. Teron Johnson is an interesting one because if they were to cut him now, they would eat $9.5 million of dead cap space, and they would save $1.9 million if they cut him now. If they cut him post June 1st, it's $2.7 million dead, but they would save close to $9 million in cap space by cutting him June 1st. Again, not a prediction here. I'm just laying out nothing but numbers when you think of him in the year he had, because I don't know what your assessment was of Teron, Anthony, this past season, but I saw a guy who he lacked making any impactful plays. Like, this is a guy for his career who's been, like, when you needed that big play on defense, like, he'd get beat. Oh, my God, I need a big play. Oh, it's Teron Johnson. Yet again, a big play. I didn't see any of that, really, this year. I don't know if he's just taking a beating throughout his career, the way he plays, so physical, if that's starting to take a toll on him. I don't know. What's your take on him? What's your thought? Jordan Hancock potentially could be in the mix there going forward. I don't know if he's going to be a safety or that slot corner going forward, but you think that's possible? They can move on from Johnson, or do you think he's pretty locked in?
I think he's decently locked in. Even just from the money perspective, right? Like it's a 2.7 dead cap post June 1st this year, but then it's also like a 6.7 dead cap for 2027. So you're incurring like more than you're saving. And also too, like if you want to designate him post June 1st, you only get 2 of those designations. So it's like, are you designating Taryn for that? Are you doing that for Curtis Samuel? Are you maybe doing that for Dawson Knox? Or are you going to restructure Knox? Like it gets messy, it gets muddy. I think he definitely had a down year, right? Yeah, especially like kind of playing, wild. Just the verbiage, like it's crazy to just call someone like an old loser.
I know it is wild, and and to my detriment, sometimes I throw up somebody's comments on the screen that probably I shouldn't give public to people, but yes,
he definitely had a down year. Again, especially playing the run, like he was at the forefront of it. Was really like him, Mike Hilton, and Kenny Moore that were these 3 nickels that could play the run and could play the pass, and it didn't matter like what situation they were in. I always thought Taryn was a better run defending nickel than a coverage nickel, but he can still hold his own. We're only a couple years removed from that game against Dallas in Buffalo, where he was just manned up on CeeDee Lamb for a good majority of the game and just waxing him. And it was like, whoa, okay, like that's pretty cool. But some faltering in coverage this year and just not seeing that trigger in the run. Defense is almost kind of forcing him into the box, using motion to pull Milano out, and then Bernard shifts and Taryn's in the box, and Taryn's just getting crushed by guards and tackles and bigger dudes. He was also, I think, banged up through a chunk of the year as well. I don't think they're going to move on from him. I think it's tough to do that as well. But this like not to get too galaxy brain with it. I think like a big nickel is more of like a skeleton key in today's NFL than it has been before, with, heavier personnel groupings and all, and the advent of the run becoming premium and everything again. I think you having a big nickel prevents you from having to let an offense like dictate matchups to you based on their personnel. And you can play personnel, but you can also play the situation more because you've got that versatile chess piece. I actually would like Cole Bishop to get moved to nickel and then give me 2 new safeties. And that's not necessarily a knock against Bishop. I just think his skill set is at his best in and around the line of scrimmage like it was at Utah. He's at his best as an apex, big nickel, monster man, whatever verbiage you want to use. Let him play in and around the box as that big nickel. You can blitz him. He plays in the hooked curls or the curl flats. He can man up on a tight end, man up on a running back. He's also fine as a down safety too. If you want to leave him as a traditional safety, that's fine. I would love for them to get like a Micah Hyde to his Jordan Poyer, even though Hyde and Poyer could both do everything together. But yeah, I would love for Bishop to be the big nickel and you kind of roll from there. I think that's my pie in the sky type of deal. But I am also interested to kind of see what Taryn can do. He had 1 down year. I thought he was good the years prior. I think it's too much to be like, oh, you had 1 down year, you're gone.
Very fair. All right, let's do this. One more real quick break on the video side and come back. I'm going to run through. The Bills got a lot of defensive free agents. I'm going to run through that list, see who Anthony would like to see back on this team if it's doable, and then we'll get into a couple of potential guys he'd like to see come in from the outside. Be right back. And by the way, big shout out. Well over 1,000 people watching us right now live on a late Sunday night. Appreciate you guys for stopping by, and some of you commenting, some of you going a little bit over the top with these comments. But it is what it is, man. We like to let people say whatever they want to say, as long as it's not too outlandish. Anyway, all right, listen. There is a laundry list right now of upcoming Bills unrestricted free agents on the defensive side of the ball. And this is purely about defense on today's show. I'm going to run through this list real quick here. Tell me if there's one or a couple that you're interested in retaining. And again, there is a lot. Joey Bosa, Matt Milano, Trey White, Shaq Thompson, DeQuan Jones, AJ Epinesa, Jordan Poyer, Larry Ogunjobi, Damar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, Jordan Phillips, Darnell Savage, Fedarian Mathis. Everyone I just mentioned is due to be an unrestricted free agent. I don't care if it was Jim Leonhard, Jim Schwartz, Raheem Morris, or if they brought Bobby Babbage back. There's going to be turnover on this defense just because of the sheer volume of unrestricted free agents. And again, maybe a cut or two along the way here to do some roster management. But you look at that long list. Is there anyone on there that you're like, man, I think this would be a good fit, a good opportunity to bring back? Or are you looking to move on from most of these people and bringing in a lot of new guys?
I'm moving on from most of them. And I'll tell you what's also really painful. A lot of those names have money on the books for this year and some even next year because of the void years of their contracts. Shout out to Brandon Bean. I would bring none. I would bring back Trey. Give me Trey as corner 3. I thought he did really well this year, even as corner 2. Even when he was kind of getting dragged over the coals a little bit earlier in the year, I thought he was playing better than he was getting credit for. He was tackling well. He was playing good as a run defender. They were blitzing him off the edge, just like they were Benford, and he was making plays. And then some of the coverage stuff that he was doing, I thought he had a really strong year. And I think he's the perfect corner 3. One of your guys goes down, he can moonlight or spot duty for a game, a longer stretch of that. Like, I would welcome Trey back. Good culture guy. I think he would be fine. I would welcome Trey back. I'd be cool with Shaq Thompson as well. I don't think they're going to get him for as cheap as they got him, but I love Shaq as just to be in that linebacker room and be a depth guy. And
I wanted to ask you about his fit, what you think with him in a Jim Leonhard defense, if that's like something that could work.
It's interesting, to kind of how you would use him, but I still think with his knowledge and his size and athleticism he's fine as a depth guy. I don't think he's like a starter plug and play type of deal in the defense, or maybe even general. Like, you just see some of the kind of limitations for him at times, but he's still got it's crazy with the miles on the tires and all the lower body injuries that he's suffered. He's still got a good combination of size and athleticism. Yeah. And you see the headiness. I mean, him picking off Trevor Lawrence in that game against Jacksonville is purely because he knows nothing is threatening from him from the route concept to the field side. So he plays the boundary side. He knows how much they like to run digs, and he just waits it. He waits on that dig from Parker Washington, slips under it, and picks it. So I think you could do a lot worse than him as a depth guy, but I just think he's going to end up getting paid somewhere. And also, too, Bernard gets hurt a bunch. And even Dorian Williams gets hurt a bunch. So even if you said, no, Dorian and Bernard are going to be your 2 dudes on the inside, you still probably need to have a good number 3 inside, because one or both of those dudes are going to get hurt at some point. So I'd be cool with Shaq. I would have been decently all right with Daquan and rocking him as a 4-eye. But he's been spouting off a lot on social lately in a negative way. So I'm kind of out on that.
It's weird behavior from him, too.
It really is. Him going off, and then I saw like Jerry Hughes going in super hard on Sean McDermott, and I was like, man, these are like interesting kind of takes, but no, I'm good for that. Daquan's been banged up a bunch too. Epinesa, not in this defense. Poyer, no. Ogunjobi actually like came from an odd front defense in Pittsburgh, playing a 4-eye a bunch, but I didn't like his play, and I'm good. I wasn't too high on him coming in, and I'm less high on him now. And then DeMar, no. Cam Lewis, no. Jordan Phillips, no. Darnell Savage, no. And then for Darian Mathis, no. So I would legitimately welcome back Trey as a CB3. I'd be cool with Shaq as a depth guy. And then, yeah, I'm good on everybody else.
That's a lot of turnover. I'm with you pretty much on all those as well.
And then can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's also why I don't think, like, even if it was a drastic shift in this defense from McDermott to Leonhard, you already had to add so many bodies because of who you're losing. Like, you already needed to add like 2 or 3 edges, a couple interior defensive linemen. Even if you kept the same defense, who's starting at the will opposite of Bernard? Is it Dorian Cool? You still need to add a depth guy there. Like, you still probably needed to add a safety anyway, or probably 2. One of them likely a starter, because we'll see what happens with Taylor Rapp. You already had like natural churn that was happening. So now you already had those spots open. Now you can just bring in more ideal body types and guys for the newer defense that you're running, even though it's not completely different worlds like it's being made out to be. But even if it was, you already have a good chunk of spots open that you needed to bring guys in for anyway.
Real quick, too, because I want to let the audience know, I forgot to do this at the top. Joe from Queens is going to be on the show tomorrow. Then I'm going to have Matt Moran on from SB Nation. And Wednesday Night Live, Thad Brown, Buffalo Bills beat reporter, is going to join me for a fun conversation. So all that stuff and more coming up here throughout the week on Talking Buffalo. Going through the list, and again, I agree with you. I do got one thing to add about Trey White, though. He just turned 31 this past week. I don't care, or 2 weeks ago. I don't care. That's not my point. He's 31 years old. I think if you bring him back, he's going to have to learn how to do something he's never really done in his career. And he's going to, if you have a CB3 who doesn't start, then you got to play some special teams. Do you have a guy who's not going to be a starter, but then he has no value on special teams either? It's is he a game day inactive if he's not starting, or is he going to have to learn how to play a little bit of special teams? That's something I've been thinking about with Trey, because I'm with you. I thought he was better than given credit for early, and then I thought he was really solid late in the season. I'd love to have him back, but man, if he's not going to be the starter, which, by the way, I don't think if the Bills did re-sign him, I think you're going to get a good old-fashioned competition in the summer. I don't think Max Sears is going to get handed anything if you bring Trey White back. But that's something, right, you'd have to think about?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you kind of wonder the special teams value of that. You know, anytime you're looking at like your CB3, your CB4, your safety 3, your linebacker 3, usually those guys contribute on teams to some degree. And what's also interesting too, like, and I didn't even get into this too much when talking about the Jim Leonhard piece, like his coverage is on the back end with what he was at Wisconsin, but then even more so with being at Denver. You know, he's going to play a good amount of like match coverage, rules-based coverages. You know, we could talk forever on what match coverage means and how it's defined, but essentially all you need to know is like it's rules-based. So, you know, if player A does this, we do that. If player A does that, we do this, and so on and so forth, right? Everybody has to see that. The safety has to see that. The nickel has to see it. The outside corner, the linebacker, all that. And you have different rules, 2x2, 3x1, all that kind of stuff, right? That's something that whoever the corners are, you have to learn that stuff, and you have to be sound in that kind of stuff. And so if there was a corner competition, just off of the experience and knowing who can do what, I'd give that advantage to Trey. Like, Max is going to have to learn more of that. Now, Max obviously has the athleticism advantage and the youth advantage and the juice and all that kind of stuff. But if you're playing a defense where everybody needs to be on point from the neck up, in addition to being on point physically, it could be one of those things that like, ooh, like Trey maybe does have a leg up here, and we kind of battle it, kind of just to get another little wrench kind of in that competition, if that were to happen.
Diving Pickle in the live chat said, the obsession with older players is insane. These guys haven't gotten it done when it mattered most for many years. Well, I agree with that, and I don't know. I don't know many people pounding the table to bring these guys back either, so I'm not sure where the obsession is coming from. I don't really know a lot of people that are like, please.
Yeah. Is bringing Trey back bad? Is that what you're saying? Is that what is being said in the comment? Like, because
No, I'm thinking it's just about the older players in general. Like, they keep coming back. You know what I mean? Like the Jordan Phillipses and the Poyers, although Poyer played very well. But the concept of bringing these guys back, I don't think that's anything that anyone's really pounding the table for. I got to tell you, dude, I kind of feel like you guys have been hitting the beers or the booze or something here in the live chat a lot today, because now we're talking about linebackers. One, the legend of Kiko. Someone else is saying bring back Daryl Talley. Someone else said bring back Paul Postlosky. All right, man, what are we doing here, man? I do want to ask you a serious question, though, among these free agents that they're probably going to lose. How disappointing was it to see Joey Bosa more or less kind of fall off a cliff later in the season? I mean, this guy was making, and we talked about Teron Johnson, or I did anyway, how, like, until this year, he was making those splashy, impactful plays. Well, Joey Bosa was this season for a while. That Pittsburgh game, first play to third quarter, play the game, turn the game around. They were losing. Strip sack, fumble, Benford picks it up, bam, touchdown. Nothing. Like, you got him for January. If you and I had this conversation 12 months ago, we would have been like, well, let's see what he does in January, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything in January. How disappointed are you with him, or surprised at what you saw from him late in the season?
Not really disappointed or surprised. I think unfortunately, it's what it's always been for him, right? Like, when he's healthy, he's sick. He just gets hurt too much and too often, and that's what happened. Like, he was legitimately a top 10 edge rusher in advanced metrics and a ton, like, watching the tape, and he was sick. And then he hurts his hand against Kansas City, is playing with a literal club on his hand, and then kind of the makeshift cast type of deal. He's playing without one hand for a good chunk of the back end of the year, and then that's still bothering him. He gets banged up again. I just think it was, unfortunately, kind of tale as old as time with him, which was, he's hurt. So yeah, and the comment there, like, was never same after the hand injury. That's exactly what it is. Like, tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme type of stuff. Like, Joey Bosa gets hurt down the stretch, isn't able to make an impact when you need him most. And then what's harder about that too is you were injured at edge, and none of your other guys are really making an impact. So it's not even like, okay, you know what? We can kind of chill and let Bosa rest for a little bit and keep him fresh for the playoffs. Like, they're playing him on early downs like he's prime Joey Bosa because they had to play him. Rousseau is hurt to start the year. Then Epinesa gets hurt, and, they're not playing him on early downs maybe because of that type of stuff. You don't have Landon Jackson. You're moving TJ Sanders to edge because it's such a desperate thing for you there. It really was just kind of, old hat for Bosa with the injuries, and then a bit of a perfect storm with the Bills because he had to play so much for them because there were questions with the rest of the edge grouping.
It's just weird too, because it's like he suddenly forgot how to set the edge and contain on the edge, because he was so good. I remember reading up on him and looking at his metrics, and he was a good run defender with the Chargers, and just wasn't like that with
some of it is also like the scheme stuff too. Like, there are times where he tried to dive inside and make a play and it went outside. And then there's other times where they're just not adjusting for, like, the zone read or any types of things. And it's just kind of like, okay, like, are we not correcting for this? Like, if he's not, someone else does. I think some of the times he got caught out was unfortunate at times for him, and he kind of got a raw deal, but more often than not, he was diving inside and the scheme wasn't corrected for it on the back end. But you can live with that if he's getting pressures and sacks and making game-changing plays, but that all falls apart. And, it was even funny. I was even thinking of it too, the one, I don't remember what game it was, but he misses a tackle and McDermott yells at him on, like, camera. You can see him being like, you got to wrap up. But he was trying to make the tackle with the club hand. And it was like, dude, he can't wrap up. He's got a club on his hand. Like, he can't even use that hand.
It's unfortunate too, because what I will say is it was very sincere. Joey Bosa, from people I've talked to, really genuinely loved being a Buffalo Bill. Like, he loved that team. He loved living in Buffalo. He liked everything about this town and about this football team. And, man, if it would have worked out a little bit better, he would have loved to have come back, and I'm sure the Bills would have loved to have had him back. But they're probably almost certainly going to move on from him, and rightfully so. So, on that note, this is how I wanted to save this kind of last question for you. We've talked about guys they may cut. We've talked about pending free agents that you probably are saying goodbye to, sans one or two of them maybe, who are a couple guys, now that you know who the defensive coordinator is, because that matters, what kind of defense they're going to run. When you look around guys around the league who would be free agents or whatever, who are a couple guys that you would be interested in seeing become Buffalo Bills? Like, what may this defense look like in 2026 if you can get a couple guys that you think could be good fits? I found a couple, and I want you to talk about some of these guys. So, but that kind of have Jim Leonhard ties, because that kind of seems what it's always about when you go get new players. Anyway, or a couple guys that you think could come in there and be really good fits.
Yeah, I think there will be some familiar names. Like you anytime you get like a new defensive coach or an offensive coach, mainly on the defensive side, it's always like they bring in their, quote unquote, their guys, the guys who know their system or play with them before. Oh, appreciate you, Paul. Thank you very much for that kind of words. Guys who know the system, who translate well or whatever. I'll start from the D line and go out. Roy Lopez, defensive tackle from the Detroit Lions. He went to them last year on a 1 year. If anybody knows me, they'll know that I pounded the table for him last year for the Bills, coming out of Arizona. I wanted him as a one tech. He went to Detroit and, kept kicking ass on the interior like he did the year before. He is a UFA once again. He's just exactly the type of skill set and body type and play style you need at nose tackle. I think you can drop him in and let him do work on the interior. And then I think that also kind of opens up Deion Walker to line up at other spots on the defensive line like he did at Kentucky, and kind of utilize him a little bit more rather than making him just grind and get hit all the time on the interior. And then I'm looking also on the defensive line, defensive end spot. And again, keep in mind now when we say defensive end, it's more like, okay, defensive end, but also like kind of that 4-eye interior of the tackle spot. Also someone who's like more interior defensive lineman than they are defensive end. Jonathan Franklin Myers from the Denver
You've been putting
Broncos.
film on him on Twitter. I saw a couple clips that you had up today.
I started doing some. He was, as soon as I saw that he was released or that he was going to be brought back, I was like, oh, that'd be a cool name. And then they hired Leonhard, and I was immediately like, John Franklin Myers. And I started diving into his tape a little bit, but he's somebody who I like from his time at the Jets. I just think he'd be solid for them. You kind of shore up that defensive end spot for you, but who, if you go with like 4 down stuff, he can rock a little bit as a 3 tech, a little bit as a 1, and kind of do some things for you across the line. I think he just adds versatility and experience and effectiveness in a variety of ways. Linebacker, this isn't going to be fresh, but I think it just makes more sense, or a lot of sense. Jack Sanborn, Leo Chenal, anybody who's been a linebacker at any Wisconsin linebacker will do. Like, you need these. Like, not even like, all jokes aside, like Sanborn has always been more of a depth guy, but like Leo Chenal, Zach Bond, Andrew Van Ginkel, these type of Wisconsin backers that have this versatility where it's like, okay, they can play off ball, that you can blitz them, you can put them on at the end of the line of scrimmage and let them do some stuff there and, mess with tight ends and jack them up or rush off the edge, different for each one of those guys. But I think you need more versatility in your linebacker spot in terms of like somebody who can go from the A gap all the way to the C, rush a little bit outside, drop in a variety of coverage, has some size and athleticism. So kind of dipping into that pool. Safety, this one's probably going to be too expensive. I like Kobe Bryant, the safety from the Seattle Seahawks. He's a UFA.
I remember you talking about him before draft season, not all that long ago.
Yes, he was. Cincinnati had a couple cool DBs that came out that year. And Kobe Bryant was one of them. And I think he's going to end up getting paid too much on the open market. He had a higher missed tackle rate and some ugliness tackling this year than I would have liked. His missed tackle rate doubled versus the year before, and angles coming forward and tackling are a big thing for me with safeties, but he also had a couple good reps. He's good with match coverage. He's sound. You can play him in the box. You can play him deep, single high, 2 high. He's got some nickel experience as well. Like, they used him early on in his career. I think he's going to end up being too expensive, but he's like a splash on the back end that I think would be cool, especially if you're going to play some match coverage stuff like they likely are. So those are kind of the names I'm really digging into. Roy Lopez is probably the biggest one for me because he's the most cost effective, but he's also going to provide a role and a value and a skill set that they absolutely need.
Back to John Franklin Myers. You look into production. He had 14 and a half sacks his last 2 seasons at Denver. You know how many sacks Greg Rizzo's had his last 2 seasons? 15. He's only had 1/2 more sack than Franklin Myers, who's not known as a sack machine by any means, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? 14 and a half, the production's been there. Leo Chenal would be great. You mentioned him. What about Alex Singleton? I've read up on him. He's been a tackling machine. He did, for people, if you remember from the game, he's the one who hit James Cook.
That's why I don't want him. He could kick rocks forever. He forced that fumble.
Bills were getting ready to go up 14-3 in Denver, and it was linebacker Alex Singleton who hit him and caused that. And it was a nice hit, too, by the way. It wasn't like
perfect.
It sucks that Cook's fumble or that James Cook fumbled, but it's not like he just dropped the ball. He got stuck pretty hard, and the ball came out. Anyway, that was Singleton who hit him there. And then the other guy who's a Denver guy, too, was safety. Again, you want to go back to the divisional round, PJ Locke. Now, he's not a big-time player, but, I mean, is he better than Jordan Hancock? He's better than 34-year-old Jordan Poyer?
Yes.
He had an interception against the Bills on that underthrow for Curtis Samuel, I believe.
He
also had a forced fumble that game, too.
Safety.
So
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are some guys. What about if you were going to make a trade, realistically, okay, don't say Myles Garrett. They're not getting Myles Garrett, all right, dude? Can't trade Myles Garrett 1 year after giving them what they did. But is there a guy that you trade that you feel like is at least somewhat feasible? I mean, it could be semi-fantasy. I mean, we're having a little bit of fun here, but who would be one guy that you would just love for this defense whose name's not Myles Garrett?
Oh, man.
That could really come in and you'd be like, man. Like somebody who you might want over Jalen Waddle. People keep saying Justin Jefferson. That's got to stop. The Jalen Waddle, Brian Thomas Jr., those are guys that, on the offensive side of the ball, it'd be pretty cool to have somebody like that. But somebody on defense that you're like, I'd rather have this guy than a wide receiver.
Oh, man. It's funny. Like, my number one realistic trade candidate is a receiver, and I it's the same as the deadline. I want Chris Olave. Oh, yeah, man. If they could, Max Crosby would be sick. Oh, man. It's so tough now because I wonder. I would go safety. And I don't know if maybe starting fresh with a new coaching staff, how that plays out. They have two young safeties there that they just drafted. I would look at Jesse Bates from the Atlanta Falcons.
Ooh, I like that.
Play him in the post, do a bunch of stuff there. Again, new coaching staff. You just took Xavier Watts and you took Bowman, even though Bowman's more of like a big nickel type of deal. If they could get Xavier Watts, that'd be great. But yeah, I would kind of take a swing at safety, kind of get yourself a known quantity back there, a true rangy ball hawk guy who can read route distributions, who knows how to play the angles, can make some plays on the ball, frees up Cole Bishop to kind of play as that down safety in and around the box, all that type of stuff. So I would take a swing at a safety. And I would go, I think I'm playing all like the safeties that I like and thinking of who's in the most like tenuous situation. And I'm going to play, you got a new coaching staff and an organization, and maybe they're like, man, we don't really care about this guy that much. So I'll go for Jesse Bates.
Last thing real quick here. People probably aren't going to like hearing this, but like say last year, they dumped so many resources financially and draft into the defense. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to see that just as much this year and maybe even more. This offense needs to be tweaked. If you're not going to go get a stud receiver, you got to be careful because then you're getting into that mid-level Curtis Samuel, Josh Palmer type contract territory, that $8 to $10 million a year, and you might end up with one of those guys. So it's obviously critical that whatever they bring in, whether it's a free agent or a trade with a wide receiver, that they get it right. But my point is, I think you're going to see a lot more, like a heavy draft again on defense. I think you're going to see that again. I think you're going to see the top one or two free agents or trades that are brought in on the defensive side. This is going to be, again, I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, but I feel that way, and you probably do as well. This is going to be a heavy, heavy defensive offseason for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, that's what frustrates the hell out of me because I feel like it's always a heavy defensive offseason to a degree, and they always have to address the defensive line. Like the interior is always a question. The edges are always a question. But you have to, even if you weren't changing anything, right? Again, even if McDermott stayed, Babbage stayed, everybody stayed, you still needed to add at the interior defensive line, at your edges, at your linebacker, and at your safety already. Like you already had to do that. I would love Alec Pierce. I think he's going to cost way too much money in free agency. He's going to get paid. He's big and he's athletic and he's fast as hell. Like he's going to get paid on the open market. But yeah, realistically, if you're looking at offense, like you need to add a receiver, probably two dudes, but you definitely need like a top of the depth chart, high end 2 or some kind of 1 in some capacity. And then do you need a starting left guard? Do you need a starting center? Are you bringing back McGovern? Are you bringing back Edwards? Is Cedric Van Pran Granger and Alec Anderson ready to take over both of those spots? So do you have the answer in-house? Even if you do have the answer in-house, okay, then you can draft a center and a guard or sign one to kind of play some depth or do all that. But yeah, I think it's gonna frustrate the hell out of a lot of fans. But yeah, they do need, again, and this isn't because like, oh, well, because they got a new DC and a new scheme. No, like they were going to have to add on defense anyway. Even if everything stayed the same, you needed a bunch of stuff on the defense. And yeah, it's no different this year. When you have limited financial resources and a regular amount of draft picks, it's tight. Yeah. It's frustrating.
It is. It is. All right, that's going to put a wrap on this. I've kept Ant here more than long enough. Appreciate his time. Make sure, guys, you go to Cover One, Disguise Coverage. That is Anthony's show. You check that out. Film Room alongside Eric Turner. Just, man, Greg and Aaron on their show. The Bills guys, there's just so much going on with Cover One. Make sure if you're not yet already subscribed that you do. They bring something different to the table pretty much every night. Appreciate those guys, and I appreciate my guy Anthony. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, Twitter X, whatever the hell you want to call it, @pro_Ant. Appreciate you, guy. This was a lot of fun, man. I always love talking to you, dude. And I'm going to have you back for a mock draft, too, in a couple months.
I appreciate you. Yeah, anytime you want me, you got me. I appreciate all the kind words and you have me on the show. And yeah, I'm excited to come back and do the mock draft and have everybody yell at us because we took players that they didn't want.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Again, well over 1,200 on the live. People listening to the podcast on Monday. Appreciate you guys. I'll be back. Joe from Queens joins me on the show tomorrow.